What's up, Dragon Brood? So, I just realized I'm looking at myself in the camera and I'm realizing I'm starting to look like a mess. I am in the lab entirely too much, making too many decks for y'all for Kaldheim. No, actually, I'm having a good time doing it. And it's actually been a lot of fun because we're seeing lots of interesting new decks, new cards, new builds. So, hey, and y'all seem to be responding positively to it. So, I'm going to keep on going until the set comes out, just like I promised. So, today, we're going to be talking about ABZAN Midrange. This is going to go a little bit of a different direction, but we're going to get to use some cards we haven't used in any of the other decks previously, so that's pretty exciting. Before we get into it though, like always, I'm going to ask if you haven't, please like this video because that helps this video get seen by more people. And then, if you'd be so kind, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified every single time I put one of these videos up, because we're doing multiples a day leading up to the release of Kaldheim. But for now, let's go take a look at what an ABZAN midrange list might look like. Alright, so there's going to be a lot of removal cards in this list in various setups, but we are going to be playing for the long game in this type of list. So let's start at the top and take a look. We've got some Blood Chief's Thirst. Again, almost anytime you're playing black in a list, it's going to be hard not to play Blood Chief's Thirst these days. But we're playing 3 copies of Shovel, Bane of Monsters. It is a 1/3 with Death Touch. In your upkeep, you mark something with a bounding token, and then if you kill it, you get to draw a card and gain 3 life. Since we have a lot of ways to kill things, well, we're probably going to get some extra cards if Shovel's out. Also, the other thing is Shovel with Death Touch sometimes just net you a card anyway because he just goes to work all by himself. Then we've got 2 Scavenging Ooze. This was one I toyed around with, like, do I want any? Do I want 4? And just try to figure out kind of what it's going to look like. But I also was thinking about there's going to be some decks that don't really have a lot of creatures. And I don't really know what people are going to be doing right out of the gate. Again, I think I've mentioned a few times, I think people are going to be playing aggro decks from the start just because there's so many tribal things in Kaldheim that people are going to want to try. So I don't think that's going to lead to as many like graveyard synergies that you're worried about. Could be wrong though. Again, there's the like zombie deck that does have some stuff that comes out of the graveyard. But generally speaking, maybe we'll kill enough stuff in combat that'll be worth it to go ahead and have those Scavenging Oozes around. Then we've got a full set of Line of War Visionary. This card's awesome, 3 mana, 2/2. Comes into play, you draw a card, you tap for mana. That's going to help us cast our later stuff and help us find answers that we may be looking for. So big fan of playing that card for sure. Then we're playing 3 Murderous Riders. Mostly because it kills things, but it does also gain life with lifelink. So it gives us a little bit of extra room while we're trying to get to those later stages. It's just the right card to have, and it's just more removal that works with Shovel or even just gets problems out of the way. The good news is we do have multiple ways to deal with even Planeswalkers and stuff, so that's also very nice. Speaking of moving into Mythos of Nethroi, we're playing 3 of those, and this is another one that can pretty much remove anything. And this is the one you kind of want to hold on to if you have a removal card of choice to play when you're playing this list. You probably want to just hold this for the more problematic stuff you have trouble removing otherwise. Say if there's an artifact, an Embercleave, a Great Hinge, something like that that you want to get rid of, you're going to want to use the Mythos and Nethroi for that. You don't necessarily want to use it to remove a creature or planeswalker because you have Blood Chief's Thirst, you have Murderous Rider. So you want to be just more judicious with how you use your cards when you have that many choices. Then we're playing 2 copies of Seraph, Realm Eater. Or Seraph, I should say. It's a 3/3. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into the graveyard, you put a +1/+1 on Seraph during your upkeep. You can choose to remove all the counters from Seraph, and then it destroys all other creatures with cost equal to or less than that number of counters. Now, probably wondering, like, why would you play this in a list when we're also playing creatures? Well, if we're having to pull that trigger on Seraph, that means things have gotten bad enough that we're okay with doing it. It's a way to sweep the board and reset, but it doesn't actually get rid of Seraph himself, so you can get rid of everything and still get through for 3 on that turn. Super cool. And it's a 3/3 for 3 already, so it's not like the smallest body, and every time something dies, which you've seen, we're focusing on killing a lot of creatures, it gets a counter. So something we're really going to get to experiment with on that card. Then we're playing a couple copies of Varragoth, Bloodsky Sire. I want to say I have Varragoth and a couple other lists coming up as well, so keep your eye out for that. But this is just a good kind of all-around card. It's a 3 mana, 2/3, so it's a little on the small side, but it does come with Death Touch. But when you attack, you can target player, but I assume mostly you're going to target yourself. You can search their library for a card, shuffle the library, put that card on top. So basically, if you're looking for a card down the road, you can get in an attack, pay 2, put what you want on top for next turn, and then be set to go. Only really fails if you're playing against like a mill deck of some kind, but otherwise, could be pretty sweet. So interesting to see how this card works out in this list, especially when you may be full on mana, so you're just going to go hunt for a Planeswalker. Or maybe your hand's a little gummed up, so you're going to go find some other creature to play. Maybe a Planet War Visionary, or you're looking for a removal card, right? It gives you that option. So I really dig that. Then we have Binding of the Old Gods. 4 mana, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. The other parts don't really matter that much in this list. I know it's sad to say that, but generally, I mean, you can search for a forest, but the forest into play, and that's not nothing. And then our creatures gain Death Touch until end of turn. You have a couple of them that already have Death Touch, but you don't really care that the others do, except for in a few rare situations. You're mostly playing this because it's an all-around removal that can just get rid of any non-land permanent. So that's why it's here. The other parts are just kind of like bonus stuff. Basically, if it said remove anything at sorcery speed, you'd have been fine with it. We're just going to play that. Then we have a couple copies of Draugr Necromancer. So if you just saw my list from yesterday that we put up with the Dimir Snow Zombies, this was a card that was in there. Still really good here. You know, it's another card that you're just going to kill stuff. You get to play stuff, right? You kill your opponent's things, they get exiled, you get a chance to play it. And that alone sometimes is going to turn things around, right? Your opponent plays a big thing during their end step. You kill it during your turn. You untap. This guy's still on the board. You go ahead and find it. And then that's going to be enough. You may not even have to play your big threats to win. Coming around the back end of the higher side of the deck, we do have 2 Elder Gargaroth. It's really hard to forego playing this card. And it's tough because this is the type of card that kind of outclasses so many other cards. You know, even when we're talking about the new Mammoth or whatever, right? The other Mammoth is 5 mana, it's 6/5, so it's smaller toughness. It does have Trample, but this has Trample. The other has the new ability, you can pay 2 and set it aside, so you can actually pay 4 to cast it, and that's a little better. And if your stuff's targeted, you get to draw a card. However, with Gargaroth, you just get to draw a card every turn, or make it 3/3, or gain life, whatever you need. And it has reach to block flyers, which we know in the new world, not only do we need it for rogues, we're now possibly going to need it for angels, which, by the way, I have an angel deck coming in the next day or so. So, yeah, just all around good card for 5 mana. And then we start stepping into the Planeswalkers. So we're playing 2 Kaya the Inexorable. And really, we're most playing Kaya here because it's exile target non-land permanent. That's why we like it the most. We get the ability to remove stuff, but you can put a ghost form counter on something. So if we want to take a chance putting something in the way and doing something, or we think our creature might die in the next turn, or whatever, yeah, all right, cool. Let's get a 1/1. It says when the creature dies, return it to the owner's hand. Okay, cool. So that works. I'm good with that. And it's a ghost form counter, so it's not even until end of turn. So that's pretty sweet. You can kind of protect yourself, set it up, do what you need to do, and then you get a token for it, and the card returns. So that's kind of neat. I like that. You get the option of having the card back, and you get a 1/1. Kind of hard to argue with that on this card. And if you get to the ultimate, then you can just start searching for planeswalkers and stuff. So really good card. I can actually see you going ultimate with this pretty regularly with this card, because there's going to be a lot of times you get to the point where you don't even need to use the minus. You'll just +1. Your opponent have an answer next turn. Okay, cool. I'm going to crack Kai on the next turn and then start looking for things. Vivian Monsters Advocate. We're playing 2 of these. Vivian's just all around good. You know, let you play creatures from the top of your library, so that's awesome. Getting a 3/3 every turn that meets the need you have, that's the other biggest thing. Now, the bottom ability, the -2, does actually come into play sometimes. There will be some situations where maybe you need to guarantee you can gain some life. So you play a Gargaroth and go get a Murderous Rider, right? Or maybe you're in a situation where you need to set up a sweeper. So you're like, okay, well, let me play this Necromancer and go get Seraph, right? And then that way you can go ahead and start setting up a way to sweep the board. But you won't use it that often, but it's really nice whenever you do feel like you need it. And then 2, Garruk Cursed Huntsman. Garruk just closes the deal, right? If you can stick a Garruk, just make wolves, make wolves, make wolves. That's usually just going to get it done. There's a lot of times you don't even need the minus. But if you do, and then you go Ultimo, that's pretty awesome. Then we have 2 Amaria's Call. I've debated if these even need to be in here, but, you know, we have ways to make mana. We expect the game to go long. There's sometimes you're just going to need to do it, so I don't hate it. looking at the lands, we're kind of a little bit all over the place, but we kind of have to do this to justify the other cards we have in the deck. So we've got one Arctic Tree Line, which is the green-white Snowland, 3 Branchloft Pathways, 3 Bright Climb Pathway, a full set of 4 Dark Boar Pathway, Endeth the Triome for 4. We're playing 4 Snow-Covered Forest, 4 Snow-Covered Swamp, and 1 Snow-Filled Sinkhole, which is the black-white Snowland. And the reason the Snowlands are important is here you're looking at 10 Snowlands to give you the opportunity to play cards with the Draugr Necromancer if you end up getting lucky. Otherwise, the Snowlands aren't going to come into play that much. So if you don't want to spend the points or the resources, I guess, maybe you don't want to burn some common wildcards for some reason to make these Snowlands, I get it. But realistically speaking, it's a small risk to pay to be able to get that upside that you could be getting from the Necromancer. Yeah, I'm already a big fan of ABZAN Midrange style decks, so I'm really looking forward to playing this one. It's a cool opportunity to get to play with Kaya that we haven't had in another list yet. Saralf, this is one of the few spots we're going to get to use it, so it's nice to have that in the list as well. So all these kind of cool cards we saw early on in the preview season, this is sort of where some of them come together and get to do their thing. It's also neat to get to use stuff like the Necromancer. There's just like a lot of cool little synergistic things in this deck that I think could be very good. And the flexibility of having removal cards that can get rid of all types of things also helps a lot. Several of them even at instant speed. So I think that's going to give this deck a little bit of an edge. And your Planeswalkers in here are very strong. And they are Planeswalkers you can try to close the game with, which is nice. So yeah, big fan of this. Hope y'all enjoyed if you're into ABZAN lists for sure. Or mid-range lists, I suppose. Also, don't forget, if you haven't, please like this video to help us get seen by more people. Then hit the subscribe button. So that'll help me out. And then you hit the notification bell because that helps you out getting notified every single time we have one of these new decks out. And remember, we're going to keep putting out until Kaldheim, so don't miss them. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.